Hey everyone, welcome to the second tutorial in my series on cocktail piano from scratch. Now if you've seen the first tutorial in the series, you'll know that what we're doing is taking this pretty basic 32 bar lead sheet, which is just melody and chords in an AABA structure, the kind of thing you might find in a songbook, only without any lyrics, and we're looking at how you can transform it into a full cocktail piano solo. Now in the first tutorial we learned the melody for the A section of the song, then we looked at the chords, we learned a simple left hand using block chords and shell patterns, and we also explored some ideas related to rubato and swing, that is playing around with the timing so as to get that kind of characteristic free and easy cocktail sound. Now if you haven't already seen that first tutorial, you're going to find it useful to have a look at it, if only to refresh yourself on some basic ideas. But by all means go through this tutorial first, especially if you're a slightly more experienced piano player. You'll find a link to that previous tutorial, plus a playlist link for the whole series and a downloadable PDF of the lead sheet we're working on, all in the description text right underneath this video on its YouTube watch page. So in today's tutorial we're going to do three things. First of all, we're going to learn the melody and the chords for the B section of the song, which we didn't look at in the first tutorial. Then we're going to learn a slightly more developed left hand, because like I said in that previous tutorial we were just playing block chords and shell chords in the left, and today I want to move on to that kind of lazy, free and easy stride that I was playing just a minute or two ago. Thirdly, we're going to learn how to add some simple decoration, especially chordal decoration, which is a really important technique in cocktail piano. So let's just take a moment to think about the whole kind of concept and function of B sections within an AABA structure. Now the point of a B section is to form a contrast with the A sections that surround it, and typically songwriters working in this kind of form do that in a couple of different ways. One quite common approach is to write a B section that is in the relative key from the A sections. Okay, so if your A section is in F major, you would then write a B section which was in the relative minor, D minor, and gradually found its way back to the major so that the A section could start again in the fourth time through, the final A of the AABA. So that's one approach. But that's not the approach I've taken here. What I've done here is use another very common strategy, which is to start the B section on the number 4 chord of the key. Okay, so I've stayed in the key of F major, but I've started the main phrase, the first phrase of the B section, on a B flat chord. So there's a little bit of tension there. It wants to get home again, okay? But it kind of works through B flat back to F, then to B flat again, back to F, and then you're ready to for the start of the A section again. Let me just play through the B section so you can get a sense of how it's going to sound. What I'm going to do is kind of really play about with the melody kind of timing wise. I'm not going to play it as written. I'm going to put a stride in the left hand. So don't really focus on the score as I'm doing this. Just listen to how it sounds and how the sound is different. What I'll do is start from bar 14. I'll start from the, so I'll give you 3 bars of the second A section and then go into the B section. Here we go. And then we're back into the final A section, and so on. So hopefully you kind of notice the difference there, okay? That's a really important thing to bear in mind, that kind of contrast. So when you're playing the B section, often you're trying to create a contrast, not just in terms of the melody and the chords that you're playing, but also in terms of the expression. It kind of has a different flavour, okay? So bear that in mind. Let's have a look at the B section melody. When I was playing just then, I was really pulling it around. I was using swing, I was using rubato, but for a moment, let's just have a look at it played strictly, okay? So I'll just play the B section melody, counting like I did in the previous video when we went through the A section melody, and I'll give us a full bar in. So I'll count a full bar in, and then I'll play the melody from bar 17, exactly as it's written, maybe with just a little bit of swing, but no rubato. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're back into the final A section. So as you can see, what was happening there was playing it very straight. It sounded much more kind of rigid and regimented and strict than the final version. Like I said in the previous tutorial, remember, when you see a lead sheet for this kind of song, it's almost always intended that you will play around with it a little bit. You will add rubato, possibly. You will certainly add swing. You will add rhythmic anticipation and so on. So what you're seeing in this kind of lead sheet is very much not a simplification exactly, but a kind of representation of the melody that you're expected to develop and build on. Just before we look at the chords for that B section, a quick reminder to check out my ebook, An Introduction to Cocktail Piano. It's usually £9.95, that's British pounds, but right now you can get it as part of a bundle deal that I'm running alongside the digital editions of 2 of my other books, How to Really Play the Piano and 7 Studies in Pop Piano. You get all 3 of those books in the bundle for £18.95, which is a 30% saving on what you'd pay if you bought them separately. Check out billspianopages.com/cocktail if you just want an introduction to cocktail piano, or billspianopages.com/bundle if you're interested in the bundle deal. I should say that if you are interested in the bundle deal but you've already got one of the books in that bundle, you can still get the other 2 at a discount, so do check out that page for more information. Now these B section chords are actually pretty straightforward. One thing that you might have noticed here is that compared to the A section, what we would call the harmonic tempo or the harmonic rhythm has slowed down. That means there are fewer chord changes. So in the A section, typically we have 2 chords in every bar, 2 chords in every measure. But if you look at the B section, then 7 of the 8 bars of the B section just have 1 chord in them. It's only the final bar of the B section that goes back to having 2 chords in it. And that's just yet another way in which the B section offers a contrast. Once again, it's a very common kind of tactic that you'll see in lots of songs in this style, songs of this era. So let's have a look at these chords one by one, starting in bar 17, where we have a full bar, a full measure of B flat major 7. Then in bar 18 we have a full bar of B flat minor 7. And then in bar 19 we have a full bar of F, but it's specified that we have an A in the bass. It's a slash chord, F over A. Okay, and that's to make a smoother transition from that B flat minor 7, which is what we would call a non-diatonic chord. It's not naturally occurring in the key of F major. It makes for a smoother transition if we can just go down to F over A, and a more kind of natural sound. And then in bar 20 we have a full bar of F7. Do bear in mind, by the way, that all of these chords you can play in lots of different voicings and inversions. You can use lots of different chord shapes. Then in bar 21 we have another full bar of B flat major 7. Bar 22 is another full bar of B flat minor 7. And then things change a little bit. In bar 23 we have a full bar of D7. Again, very common strategy. What I've done here is jump on what we would call the circle of fifths. Yeah, quite a common strategy in this kind of songwriting, because in bar 24 that takes us to 2 beats of G minor 7. If it were true circle of fifths, I would be using G7 there, but I'm not. I want a more mellow sound. So 2 beats of G minor 7 followed by 2 beats of C7. Okay, and that takes us back to the F chord at the start of the final A section via a 2-5-1 progression, if you're familiar with that terminology. Once again, as I mentioned in the first tutorial, that C7 chord, usually I would substitute. I would use something like a tritone substitution or a diminished substitution of some sort, rather than playing that very straightforward C7 chord. But we'll be talking about substitutions in the next tutorial in the series. Now let's think about how we can turn those B section chords into a simple left hand in the same way that we did for the A section in tutorial 1. That way, before we move on to playing a more complicated left hand, you can at least begin to kind of put the two hands together and build your familiarity with the song. What I'll do is just play through. In the right hand, I'll play quite a kind of rubato, swingy version of the B section melody, so you can get a feeling for the kind of thing that you can do there. And in the left, I'll just play simple block chords and maybe some shells like I did in the first tutorial. Here we go. And then you're back to the final A section. So really simple stuff going on there. A B flat major 7 shape and a B flat minor 7 shape. Now here we're in the territory where whether or not you can get away with full chords kind of depends on your piano, and if you're playing a real piano, how in tune it is. Yeah, so try that B flat major 7 chord there. If it sounds a bit chunky, go for a shell chord instead, which means when you play the B flat minor 7, you might also need to drop in that that note. Okay, maybe miss the F, but if you can, try playing the full chords. For the F over A, I just played that. I could have dropped the C in and got away with it, to be honest, that would have been fine. And then the F7 I played as a shell. And all of the others were pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. Don't forget that you don't have to use the particular shapes, the particular voicings and versions that I'm using here. Yeah, you could you could do that in the left hand. Yeah. Also, when I was playing through that B section, I was using pretty heavy rubato. I was really kind of using a kind of rhythmic anticipation and things like that. So do maybe have a listen to that again and compare it to the score to see how I was playing it differently from what's written in the score. Let's just pause for a second and take stock of what we've learned so far. We've learned the melody and chords for the A section. We did that in tutorial 1 alongside a bunch of stuff about rubato and swing and things like that. And just now we've learned the melody and chords for the B section. So now you should be in a position where you can start working towards producing a full playthrough of the whole AABA sequence, and I'd suggest that that's the next thing you do in your practice. Hopefully already you've been practicing right hand melody against left hand chords in quite a simple way for the A section. I think the next thing you should do is try that for the B section as well and marry the two together. Remember, what we're thinking about doing there is just playing simple chords in the left. You can either just copy the shapes that I was using, or even better, get a little bit more adventurous, try and find ones of your own and play around with the melody in the right hand, you know, using some of those kind of techniques of rubato and so on that we were talking about. You can really experiment there. You can be really chilled out and kind of really take your time over it. Or you can stick against a slightly tighter beat. Yeah, it's kind of up to you. But that, if I were you, is what I would do next. Even if you're a relatively advanced player who's comfortable with stride and things like that, which we're going to talk about in a second, kind of get comfortable just playing the whole AABA through in that way, so you can kind of get a feel for the material you're working with. Once you've done that, then you can begin to add in some of the material that we're going to be talking about next. Now, once you begin to get confident playing that right hand melody with simple block chords and shell chords in the left, I think the next thing to do is maybe have a go at this simple stride pattern. There are going to be various other things we're going to use to kind of turn this into a cocktail solo. We're going to thicken up the right hands. We're going to look at decoration in just a minute or two actually. But one of the first and kind of most fundamental things you can do is think about adding this stride pattern. Now, stride doesn't happen in every cocktail song by any means, but it's a really useful thing to be able to do because in cocktail your stride can be really lazy, it can be really easygoing, but at the same time it can kind of help you keep track of the beat. Yeah. It's also good because it's a good way of filling in the harmony, yet at the same time it lets you dig down into some of these lovely rich tones down the bottom of the piano. Now, if you've watched my tutorials in the past, you've probably heard me talk about stride before, but just to remind you how it works, let's say that we had a full bar, a full measure of an F chord, and we wanted to stride on it. We would do something like this. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm assuming this is a full bar of something like 4/4 time, by the way. In 3/4 it will be completely different. Let me do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can probably see what's happening here. On beats 1 and 3 I have a single low note down here, and on beats 2 and 4 I have a chord, and it tends to be around this part of the piano. Okay, so in the area around middle C or in the octave below middle C. Yeah, so we go note, chord, note, chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that gives us the kind of typical dum chunk sound of stride. Do make sure that you're placing these upper chords in the right place. A chord that is too low will, as you probably should know by now, just sound muddy. So doing this, even on a really well-tuned piano, would sound muddy, and especially if you're then playing the melody up here, you'd have a big hole in the middle of your musical range. Okay, so make sure you're getting a reasonable spread. What you can do if you're relatively new to stride is make sure the jump isn't too big. You could even do this on an F chord and play that C. But as you get more confident, you can begin to shoot for lower notes. Let's try a really low one out of shot. That's a bottom F I'm playing down there, as you can probably work out. So that's the basic stride pattern, and you can play it in quite a strict way, or you can be really kind of lazy with it. And, you know, slow down, you know, add pauses, whatever you want to do. Now in the A section that we're dealing with here, we have a slight complication because in most bars we have 2 chords. So it's difficult to do the root of the chord, fifth of the chord thing. It's not really a complication because all you would do, because you only have 2 beats for every chord in most of those bars, is just play the root of every chord. So if we look at the first 4 bars of the first A section, I would play something like this. There's the F6, there's the A minor 11. Remember, I'm playing it in an abbreviated form. You might remember we talked about that in the first tutorial. There's the D minor 9. We'll have the E of the D minor 9 in the right hand, so I'm just playing a D minor 9 shape, and same with the G minor 9. I'll have the A in the right hand. So just look at that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or I could spread it wider. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Going well out of shot down there, I know, but hopefully you get the idea. Now that takes a little bit of practice, and if I were you, I would dedicate some separate left hand practice to that. Again, don't feel obliged to copy exactly the chord shapes or the pattern that I'm using. Play around, see what else you can come up with, okay? When you get to the B section, things are in some ways a little bit easier because you've got as we said a few minutes ago, each measure or 7 of the 8 measures have just 1 chord in them. Yeah, so B flat major 7, B flat minor 7. Okay, and you know you can you don't have to worry about changing chords so quickly. One problem you might have is the fact that if we're playing these B flat major 7 chords here in the right hand, when we get to the point of doing that, you might find that your 2 hands are fighting with each other. There are 2 ways around that. If you want to play a B flat major 7 chord in the left up here, you can just play fewer notes in the right, or you can move the whole thing up here, move the right hand up an octave. Okay, and so on and so forth like that. But we'll maybe demonstrate that in the next tutorial when we start thinking about thickening up the right hand. Like I said, for now, with those stride patterns, just practice getting them under your hand, and as you get confident with them, begin to add the melody in the right hand, remembering to play around, use a little bit of swing, a little bit of rubato. If I were you, I would do that kind of hand in hand with your block chords practice. Okay, so play the simple version, then try a bit of stride, and you might find that the block chords you're using in the left for playing the simpler version, you can kind of gradually adapt into a stride pattern by adding the lower notes. Practice, play around. Don't feel obliged to slavishly copy what I'm doing. You don't have to do that. It's better if you can experiment for yourself. But to start with, by all means, just pick out the notes that I'm using and see what sound you can come up with. Remember, you're not playing against a really solid beat all the way through. Be very free and easy. Slow down, pause if you want to, gather breath, and remember to try to introduce some of the rubato, some of the anticipation that we were talking about, especially in the first tutorial, into that single note melody in the right hand. So you've kind of got your work cut out after this tutorial, yeah? You need to practice the whole A-A-B-A playthrough. You need to maybe get started with stride piano and so on. There's plenty to keep you occupied. But there's one other thing that I want to at least start talking about, and that is decoration. You might remember from the first tutorial that decoration is one of our 3 essential characteristics of the cocktail style. Just to show you some very basic decoration, let me play you through the first few bars of the first A section, but kind of in a full-blown cocktail style, kind of the style that we're aiming to play in by the time we get to the end of the final tutorial in the series. And just watch what's happening in my right hand. Here we go. Okay, now there's quite a bit of stuff going on there. We've got the melody, which we've just been playing around with quite a lot. We've got some fairly big, cool sounding chords in the left, and I'm kind of thickening up the right hand. I did a bit of chord substitution on that C7 chord there. There are various bits and pieces going on. But there's also this kind of fancy stuff going on. In the right hand, where I'm, for example, jumping up into higher octaves to give a little splashy chord. Yeah, kind of filling in the gaps in the melody, the points at which the melody is lingering on a longer note. And that is decoration, yeah? Like I've said, it's a really, really characteristic part of the cocktail style. Now, sometimes decoration can get really elaborate. You end up with stuff like that, okay? With lots of runs and trills and things like that. And sometimes it's just pretty simple, just with these little bouncy chords running up the keyboard, okay? Again, a really important thing about cocktail piano is that we use a big range of the keyboard. It's not unusual when you're playing cocktail to find yourself with your hands like this because you've got a really low note down here and your right hand has run up here, okay? So this kind of decoration is a really important part of what's going on. So how can you start using a little bit of decoration by yourself? Well, what I would do is prioritize getting comfortable with the song first, okay? At least with your block chords in the left hand, and ideally making a little bit of progress on the style. But as you begin to get more confident, think about just dropping in the occasional splashy chord in this kind of area in the piano, at the points where there's a pause in the melody. And to start with, I would just do it with block chords in the left hand, because if you try striding at the same time, yeah, you probably that's going to be too much for you to start with, unless you're already quite a competent piano player. You can begin to work on that, but just as you begin to get used to this particular sensation of playing a bit of melody, jumping back down, playing a bit more melody, I would stick to a fairly simple left hand. Now, as for the actual shapes you use for your kind of splashy decorative chords up here, an easy way to get started is just to mirror the shapes, whether they're shells or chords, that you're playing in the left hand, like this. Okay, that C7 maybe sounds a bit cheesy. Let me give you a better one you can play there. Try that shape. Which is a little bit of a substitution, but a really lovely sound. Okay, so what you're getting used to doing there is just playing a melody, moving your hands, playing a splashy chord, moving back down. Try varying them if you can. If you can go a little bit slower, then you could even try 2 chords. Yeah, what you're really getting used to here is this process of, like I said, being able to do the jumps. It's kind of the athleticism of it, okay, and getting yourself used to playing the melody, moving up here, playing a chord, and then instantly relocating yourself on the melody, okay. This is where Cocktail, the advantage of Cocktail really begin to slow, because you can slow down, you can chill out and give yourself plenty of time. Yeah, don't overdo it either, and don't kind of feel compelled to fill every single pause with a decorative chord. You probably noticed the places where I was doing it in the A section there. When you come to the B section, I'll leave you for now to decide that for yourself. You know, just try to drop in the occasional little splash where you can. Don't stress about them being very precise, okay? They might be a little bit, you know, squashy and splashy to start with, and don't stress about putting them in too obsessively, okay? Just every now and then kind of get used to making that right hand transition from the melody to a bit of decoration and back down. And if you can just begin to get used to that, as well as doing all the other stuff we've talked about in this tutorial, you'll be making good progress. So in the next tutorial in the series, which might be the final one, I haven't quite decided yet, we'll see how we'll go. In that next tutorial, we'll be focusing much more on chords. So we'll be thinking about how to use these substitutions that we've been talking about. We'll be thinking about how to make some of these chords that we're playing you know, in the song more interesting by extending them a little bit more. And we'll also be thinking in more detail about the kind of decoration you can use. For now though, you know what you need to practice. Just get confident with the AABA first with those left hand chords, maybe working a bit of stride, maybe working a bit of decoration. But the key thing to focus on is your overall confidence with the song. There we go. I hope you're enjoying the series so far. Don't forget the series playlist is in the description, or the link to the series playlist is in the description text below, so you can always keep track of the different tutorials in the series. Don't forget to check out my books, especially that bundle deal over at billspianopages.com/bundle. I think that's really great value, especially because you get an introduction to cocktail piano as part of that bundle deal. Subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed already. Check out my social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, links are all below. And also my Patreon, crowdfunder. Lots and lots of great stuff goes on over at my Patreon. It doesn't cost very much to support me over there, but there's lots of great kind of benefits to being a Patreon supporter, and we have a really great community going. So to find out more about that, check out patreon.com/Bill Hilton. Okay, happy practicing. I will see you next time, and if you have any comments or questions, just stick them as always in the comment thread under the video and I'll do my best to help you. See you soon.